Hey everyone, thanks as always for tuning in. Excited to share with you guys a more affordable Shirogorov today. Before we get into that, I just want to thank Recon1 who was kind enough to let me borrow this model. If you guys are not familiar with Recon1, they're primarily known for being a dealer of custom knives, but they've certainly brought in a lot more production knives over the last couple of years, and their customer service is absolutely second to none. So if you haven't checked them out, please feel free to go do so. They also sponsor or host quite a few different knife shows throughout the year, and again, they do an excellent job with their shows as well. So you guys can head over, check out some of the shows. If you have not been to a knife show, I would highly recommend it. It's a really, really good time. And after 2020 and 2021, we all need to get out a bit more in 2022. So we're going to take a look at this new model from Shirogorov, and this particular model is called the Quantum Ursus NL, and it is one of their more affordable models. So the last few years, maybe year and a half, maybe 2 years, Shirogorov has started bringing out some more price-conscious models, and this is the newest one, the Quantum Ursus NL, based on their model, the Quantum. So there are basically at least four, maybe possibly 5 different versions of the Quantum. There may be some full customs out there from Sergei Shirogorov, and we're going to talk prices, kind of price heavy here for a minute. We're going to get some data. Keep in mind, January 2021, so if you're watching this in the future, prices may be different, very different, vastly different, who knows. So there could be custom versions of the Quantum. Those are going to range from, who knows, $5,000 plus dollars. Most of the time, his full customs are auction pieces, and they very easily can get up to $15,000, no problem. There's also what's called a custom division version of the Quantum. It's absolutely stunning. It's got full carbon fiber frames with a subframe lock. I really, really, really want one of those, but they're very hard to find. Table price probably $1,600-ish or so, and secondary market pricing, I've not seen them less than $3,000. So, Shirogorov, if you're listening, please let me buy one of those at table. I would be very, very excited. There's also kind of the standard Quantum, came out 2019, and then they revised it and released a Gen 2 in 2021 this last year. Those are about $1,150 direct pricing. And then here we get to this one, which is the budget-friendly version compared to the other ones we just talked about. And this one is coming in at $625 for the Quantum Ursus NL. So they've done a few more budget knives as of the last few years, and this is not the least expensive Shirogorov. There are a few more. There is the Neon NL, and that one's like $550. You have this one coming in at $625, and then you have the F95 NL at like $695, and then for their more standard models, prices just go up from there. Again, anywhere from $715 up to, on the custom divisions, again, $1,600 plus pretty easily. So here's the certificate of authenticity. We'll talk about some of these details here in a minute. The box it ships in, and of course they always include their branded microfiber cloth. So spec time, we do have the Para 2 right here, and then we do have the dividend. Of course, my trusty size comparisons over the years here. Blade length 3.75 inches, handle length about 5 inches. Overall, it's about 8.8 inches, and it does weigh in at a very reasonable 4.3 ounces. So, you know, relative to the size, it's pretty lightweight. Now, we'll talk about the blade a little bit more, but the blade stock does come in at 3.5 millimeters, or about 134 thousandths. So, it is slimmed down as compared to the regular Quantum. This is a more user-focused model and less expensive from a machining standpoint. But on the machining standpoint side, there's certainly no corners cut, or in this case, they cut off all the corners, so there's nothing sharp on it. We will talk about that. So that's pretty much it for the specs, I think, for the most part. We'll go through, there's a few more things we do need to talk about, like the Chromax blade steel, the inlays, handle materials, pocket clip, lock bar inserts. So we'll get into that. We just need to do it in a bit more detail. Let's start out with the action. So this is a flipper, of course. It's the only opening method. Does run on single a single row bearing system as compared to their double row or their roller barrel system or their double roller barrel. I can't do it, guys. You know what I'm talking about. They have a lot of different systems. This is the least expensive, the single row system. This one did have kind of a longer break-in period as compared to other Shirogorovs that I've owned. So over a few hundred or thousand flips, I'm not sure at this point. It has broken in quite a bit. The action is smoothed out. And one thing too is when you get to this point here, you do have the detemp ball hit the top of the blade. Initially when I first got it, it was kind of getting stuck there. Now it's a lot easier to overcome that. So that breaks in as well, kind of that ledge there that may hold up the blade. The blade is quite a bit thinner than even like my F3 here when we look at the blade stock. So quite a bit thinner than I think most of the Shirogorovs I've owned or handled or borrowed over the years. But the balance point is perfect. So right near the first finger choil, right where you would expect it to be. And again, 4.3 ounces for an 8.8 inch knife. I think the balance is great. I think the weight is great. Action is definitely very nice. And it has broken in quite well. So now one difference again with the F3 with that heavier or thicker blade stock, the blade is heavier and the action does feel a little bit smoother, but really that's just the heavier blade coming down. So again, slight difference in terms of feel compared to like my F3 or some of the F95s I've had over the years, or like a 110 with their massive 4-inch plus blade. Obviously the heavier the blade, the longer the blade, the faster the action feels. So that's the action. We've talked about it a little bit already, but we do kind of have that nice upswept Persian-esque style blade. The overall lines on the knife, of course, are beautiful, flow very organically. I do love the overall design of the Quantum here. Now it does have a full flat grind, or just about a high flat saber grind, if you will, but it's a thinner blade stock at 3.5 millimeters. Thickness behind the edge actually comes down to 16 thousandths behind the edge, so it is very, very slicey. And at 134 thousandths blade stock, again, thinner blade stock, very thin behind the edge. This thing slices beautifully in that larger package here, so very cool. Now the steel is Chromax, which is a powdered steel. I can't really get into the nuance of Chromax, but essentially it's similar to LMAX, but it's supposed to have better performance figures than LMAX, and we know that LMAX is kind of a spec'd up version of D2, so we're kind of 2 levels above D2 here in a powdered metal application. If you guys want like more details on Chromax, you're going to need to wait for like Knife Steel Nerds to go in and really break it down with some quality data, but from a high level, that's what we're looking at. And Shiro in the past, well, is consistently trying new steels, or the first to use new steels that I've never heard of before. They definitely did so with the Vandus type steels, so they're not afraid to use something new and try it out on their knives, which is, again, is cool. It's always fun to see something new, and especially if the performance figures are better, that excites me. So that's the steel. Now the handle here, and this is something Shirogorov does very, very well, is just the amount of machine work and chamfering that they put into their knives. So as we go through and we look, hopefully in high def here, as you can see, the number of chamfered planes is just staggering. There's nothing sharp on the knife whatsoever. And one area that I really, really appreciate that is here on the lock bar. Can you guys see they went in and like chamfered the edge of the lock bar even? Like this portion right here. Usually there's a sharp spot there and you always feel it in your first finger. They did a remarkable job of just chamfer. So again, there's less machine work on this than the Quantum, but compared to normal production knives, the amount of machine work and chamfering is again still kind of second to none in the production knife space. While we're back here, nice 3D milled clip. Functions beautifully, works beautifully. Again, no sharp edges, hidden hardware on that bad boy. And then another area that I thought was really cool is taking a look at the single standoff back here. The standoff is seated into the handle, as you guys can see. And then it's not round, it's not circular shaped. It looks like we have maybe a octagon or hexagon type shape here, but that locks it into the handle so it's not going to free spin as you're unscrewing the screws in the back, which again is another really cool thing. We do have some wood inlays here, and again, this might be the one area of contention for some people is having wood inlays on their knife. Now, when I posted this on Instagram, the response was really 50-50 between people who like the wood inlays and who do not like wood inlays, or perhaps they don't like these specific wood inlays. I don't know of the type of wood. I've read somewhere, and again, it could just be gossip, that it was rosewood. Not entirely sure, so do not quote me on that. But I would love to see this with some additional inlays too. It's a very good model. I think it could be a top seller for Shirogorov, considering the price and the design and the materials here and the cutting performance. So I hope to see more different types of inlays. Again, maybe specifically carbon fiber. When I posted this on Instagram, there was a really, not a message, but a comment from Seth over at Knife Center. And I thought he put this eloquently, and it made me really kind of think of the wood in a different light. He said, "Wood inlays rule, breathes some life into the laser-guided perfection of Shirogorov, or Chris Reeve knives." And I thought that was kind of a really elegant way to say that the potential imperfections of the wood against the perfection that is the machining here is just something to appreciate. And, I think that's true. It almost makes me think of the wood in a better light, but I still would love some carbon fiber on this thing. We do have a lanyard loop at the back. It is only attached on one side, which is fine. And then we do have to talk about these 3 pins here on the back. Now, I've seen this on a few other models, and to be honest, I thought it looked tacky. I thought it looked terrible. And then I came to really, really, really appreciate the application on this knife. What they do is they really try to maximize that blade to handle ratio. And in order to do so, they do have to protect you from the tip of that knife. So that's really the application here. And I was like, well, that does seem to make sense. And as hard as I try to shove like the fat of my finger back here, or like get it at like a weird angle, I cannot reach that tip whatsoever. And gosh, it almost looks like you could, but you can't. So this application here is perfect. It allows a maximum blade to handle ratio. It keeps you from getting cut. It's just pure, simple functionality. And so I really, really come, even though visually I'm not in love with the way it looks, the application here is completely functional in nature, and I really, really appreciate it. So blade centering, perfect. Lockup, quite early, does have a stainless steel lock insert, does have kind of an over travel stop built into all Shirogorovs. Lockup is really strong. I'm not feeling any blade play. Action, again, very smooth. Ooh, almost a little too smooth right there. And then ergonomically, very grip neutral. Feels comfortable in the hand. You feel really secure, and you've got 3.75 inches of blade length there. So again, certainly inspires confidence with really reasonable weight, good balance. I mean, there's really nothing to dislike about this. And I think the really only area of contention could be, do I like wood inlays or not? And will they bring out other versions of inlays, maybe with some non-natural materials? So anyways, I think that kind of sums up the Shirogorov Ursus NL here. If you've been collecting, let's say like Spydercos and Benchmays and ZTs and some of those other knives up to this point, and you're like, what else is out there? If I go up a little bit more in price, I think this could really be a good entry into Shirogorov for a lot of people to say, is it worth it, and am I willing to try it out at this price? I think this is the answer, and I'm excited to see them kind of bridging and bringing in more affordable models, since, like my F3 here is like a $950 model. Again, that's, when we're pushing $1,000, when we're just at $1,000, I think that's kind of just a no-go for a lot of collectors. So yeah, like this one. I think it's excellent. If you guys want to go check out this knife, it's at Recon 1, so I don't know if I'll keep this one. I'll send it back. We'll just have to see here how I feel about the wood inlays. But as always, thanks for watching. More content to come. I'll see you guys soon.